I'm Tina, a 25-year-old introvert. It seems my family, especially my brother Alex, thinks I'm neat. Gotten education, employment, or training. There's a reason I ended up this way. Basic experience in middle school led me to lose trust in people. My issue with trusting wasn't due to just one reason, but the biggest one was being ignored by everyone around me. I don't know why that happened, but perhaps they found me uninteresting because I was only fascinated by machines. I've always been fond of playing around with computers, and naturally, I became adept at it. My family found it useful back then. However, this didn't last long. Instead of spending time with friends or studying like my classmates, I was always on my computer, which started to concern my parents. And always my grades at school began to drop, and by the time I graduated elementary school, I was frequently scolded for always being on the computer. When I entered middle school, the scoldings from my parents continued, and I started to believe that pursuing my passion would only result in punishment. But I couldn't stop. During my middle school days, I'd lock myself in my room on weekends so that my parents wouldn't find me. And gradually, I cut off my interactions with the outside world. The classmates at school began to call me weird and said it's hard to know what she's thinking. Fix that be on there. I became isolated as people felt it was best to keep their distance. However, I had my understanding brother, Alex. Since we were little, he always praised me, boosting my self-esteem. He was precious to me. Thanks to Alex, I managed to complete my compulsory education even as I spent more time locked in my room. After that, I immersed myself in computer-related work at home. Soon after graduating from middle school, I transitioned from just using computers to building them. By the time I was old enough to have a part-time job, I would save my earnings to buy junk computers, disassemble them, and then rebuild them the way I wanted. Thanks to my experience with computers, by my 20s, I could build PCs with specifications comparable to commercial ones. I started a business selling these PCs and quickly became known for providing affordable options. Out at 25, I earned a stable income and have saved a significant amount of money. I can comfortably contribute $2,500 to my household every month. My parents seemed puzzled about how I earned my money. Though I tried to explain my job to them several times, they never really understood. It was like we had arguments in the past, but now they seem to think that as long as I'm paying the money, they don't care. From then on, as long as I contributed money, they stopped interfering in my life. However, Alex wasn't pleased with my situation. He used to be my only ally and always understood me. But as he stayed in our parents' house into his 20s and saw me constantly on the computer, he probably grew frustrated. He started confronting me with harsh words. I would retaliate, leading to frequent clashes. Our relationship worsened, especially after he got married. He married his high school sweetheart. It seemed she had heard about me from Alex and didn't have a favorable opinion. person once she became my sister-in-law, she seemed to further influence his views about me. In the midst of all this, I began to be viewed as a jinx in our family home, even though I mostly kept myself locked in my room. I could feel the malice in the air, which weighed heavily on my heart. Nothing beats the comfort of living at home. Yet that same home suddenly felt like a place I shouldn't be. Gradually, I sensed an increasing hostility from my parents. Home no longer felt like the safe haven it once was. The reason I had stayed at home and kept my room was because I earned enough to contribute significantly to the household expenses. Yet my brother Alex and my sister-in-law didn't seem to understand that. From their perspective, I was just a burden, leeching off our parents. Alex and his wife started hinting that they wanted to live with our parents, pushing for me to leave. Moving out, our relationship had soured, and living together would only worsen things. If I left, the money I was contributing to the household would be saved. That didn't sound bad at all. As I pondered this, Alex suddenly brought up the topic of inheritance. He seemed to be under the impression that our parents were well off and that I was living comfortably without a job. In his ignorance, Alex demanded that I give up my rights to any inheritance since they would be taking care of our parents. What Alex didn't realize was that it was precisely because of my contributions that our parents were able to live comfortably without working. I didn't appreciate being seen in this negative light. I seriously considered leaving, but I remembered the supportive brother Alex used to be. To clear things up, I asked him if he really wanted me to go. In response, Alex coughed, "Of course, just leave already." A few days later, Alex and his wife's behavior towards me worsened. They banged on my door, told my mother not to cook for me, and demanded I do my own laundry. Though it hurt, these were things I'd have to do on my own once I moved out. Still, their blatant attempt to drive me out was hard to stomach. Quietly, I began plotting my revenge. My forte is tinkering with machines, a skill good enough for professional work. Alex seemed to have forgotten this. Bossing someone with my tech skills wasn't wise. I wasn't exactly the forgiving type. It says to repair aisles. I wasn't going to leave quietly, especially when even my parents seemed to side with Alex, likely hoping for grandchildren from him. Given their alliance, I decided to leave them a little present, a device I set to activate after my departure. After searching for a new place, I finally found one and was ready to move. Missing my parents and Alex. I said, "I've supported this family for years, and this is the repayment I get." You'll see who the real curse was. Though my parents seemed briefly taken aback, they quickly brushed off my words. My words likely thinking Alex would handle things. It's their indifference stung, but it didn't matter. I left home with a heavy heart. I moved my belongings, purchased new furniture and appliances, and set up my new place. Surrounded by the things I love, my new space was even cozier than I had imagined. My work has been going much smoother than before, and what can I say? I can't complain. At first, since it was my first time living alone, I had some apprehensions. However, once I started, there was no need to worry at all. I even felt that if it was this comfortable, I should have started living alone much earlier. Fortunately, my neighbors were all friendly people, so even though I tended to stay home, I lived comfortably. Since I left home, my days have been more fulfilling than ever. As for my family, the money I used to contribute became zero, so their income drastically decreased. Perhaps they started to struggle financially as I received a call from my mother whom I hadn't been in contact with. You messed with the machines in the house, didn't you? Messed with? What do you mean? The computer is acting up and the electronics aren't working. But they seem to be broken. Is this because of you? I don't know what you're talking about. You're the only one who could have done it. Akse. Nah. I would have helped when I was living at home. But since you kicked me out, I won't. I can do it as a professional job and charge you regular fees. But will it be? You're charging your own mother? I can't believe you. At least give me a discount. Why? I'd do that for a close friend. But why would I give a discount to people who look down on me? Ever mind. It's with that, she abruptly hung up. I had anticipated her reaction and was responding to her call with ease. But it seemed my mother didn't appreciate my calm demeanor. After hanging up, she sent me an email saying, if you continue with that attitude, you'll lose all your friends. I was shocked by the immaturity of my own mother. All I had done to the computer before leaving home was to reset the stations of the family computer that I had maintained. I'd been providing updates that would usually cost money, but I just reset them to 0. But to a layperson, it probably felt like the computer was malfunctioning. If she wanted it back to how it was, she could simply hire me, a professional, to do the job. But she wasn't satisfied. I had expected this reaction, and if she didn't like it, she could leave it be. Half a year passed since I was forced to leave my family home. As I got used to living alone, I received a call from my father whom I hadn't contacted at all. Tina, can you lend me some money? What? Why? What happened? Since we started living with Alex and his wife, our expenses have skyrocketed. Every time we want to buy something new or go on a trip, they demand money from us. It seems Alex thought we had saved a lot of money. I see. But why should I lend you money? You all kicked me out of the family home. And now you're asking for money from the daughter you forced out. You must have seen this coming. Even if you say that, we can't help our current situation. I don't need a lot, just about $500 will do. I have no intention of lending you money. I only contributed to the household when I lived there. Now I have no plans to help financially. As for the machines, I can fix them if you hire me professionally. Is that how you treat your parents? I never knew you were so ungrateful. We let you live freely at home even after you graduated from middle school. I didn't feel like listening to his self-righteousness, so I hung up. Unlike my mother, my father didn't send emails. Instead, he started calling more than twice a day. Both of my parents are such a hassle. A few days after the call with my father, my elder brother called. It seems they may be having financial difficulties. When I answered the call, my brother asked, "I want to know why we were affluent when you were living at home." Appears they finally realized the financial difference between when I was there and after I left, but it's too late now. As doubtless crazy, no one completely settled into living alone. I consider this place my home. Given that I can comfortably manage both work and personal life here, there was no way I would leave. Way I would leave this place? Hey, why was our family wealthy when you were at home? I used to give $2,500 to my parents' house every month for living expenses. So, of course, they were more affluent than they are now. I did think $2,500 was a lot for just my living expenses, but I felt grateful for all they'd done for me, so I decided to give a bit more. So that's what it was. After you left home, there was no reason to continue giving them money. Felt indebted to them, even though I went through a lot, but after all that, they threw me out in such a manner. That's true. Maybe that's why Dad and Mom started spending money differently. I think you understand, but I won't ever return to our parents' house given what they did. Of course, I'm sorry. Looking back, I realized how wrong they were to you. It's a little late for apologies, especially now that you were in trouble. Can this be our last call? I don't plan on having any contact with our parents anymore. Wait, what? Hold on. Even though my brother seemed to have more to say, I hung up the phone. I'd been concerned about my family to the very end, but from the moment I left home, I was determined to cut ties with them. After being pushed to that point, there's no way I could just forgive them now because they're in trouble. I decided to terminate my cell phone contract to cut off any further contact. I couldn't bear the thought of them reaching out to me every time something happened. 5 years after moving out, cutting ties with my family, and terminating my phone, I decided to get married. My partner, a colleague, was understanding of my current life situation. He's an understanding man who even takes care of household chores when I'm engrossed in work. I thought about informing my parents, but after being distant for so many years, it felt too late. However, my husband insisted on formally greeting my parents, so I hired a private investigator to check on my family's current situation. But to my shock, they were drowning in unimaginable debts. My parents seemed desperate to have my brother. And his wife stay in the family home and borrow money from various places without lowering their living standards, but with no way to repay the debts. The interest grew and the debts ballooned. When I checked, my parents' debts were over $100,000. The family home, which they had put up as collateral, was gone, replaced by an empty lot. While I was attached to the home where I had lived for so long, this was all due to my parents' actions. I also had the detective look into my brother. He was in the midst of a divorce trial with his wife, who was resisting the divorce due to her reckless spending. and sees the trial seem deadlocked, and though my parents had been expecting to have grandchildren, the couple had no children. There were rumors that my brother was infertile, which were confirmed by the hospital they were visiting. Knowing all this, it became clear why my parents had prioritized my brother over me, even throwing me out of the house. With these revelations, it's understandable they'd be disappointed. The situation was much worse than I had imagined. After meeting my father, mother, and brother under these circumstances wouldn't be a wise decision for my husband and me. Now we have a supportive husband, 4 children, and a dog. We've purchased a big home where all of us live happily. If they knew about my situation, they'd likely want something from me to protect my current life and family. I took action as soon as I learned about all this. I went to the local government office and ensured that only I can request my personal information. I wouldn't approach them, and I asked my husband to let go of the idea of greeting them. When my husband heard the full story, he was disappointed, but he understood. Afterwards, my husband didn't say anything about my family. It was a situation where so much was happening, but maybe there will come a day when I can introduce my current family once things settle down at my parents' house. I hope I can mend the relationship with my parents and brother someday